raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change. The time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome to this special episode of the Raising Cain Show. Tonight, we are honored to have with us a true American warrior, Will Spencer. Will is the founding director of the American Warrior Association and a retired Navy SEAL Master Chief. His extraordinary military career spans over 2 decades, with 14 overseas deployments, including 8 combat tours in some of the world's most challenging environments. Will's journey is one of resilience, starting with the loss of his father at a young age and rising to become one of the youngest Navy SEALs ever. His story is filled with lessons of hard work, patriotism, and selfless service. Beyond his military accomplishments, Will is a passionate mentor, an advocate for the next generation. He has dedicated his post-service life to supporting veterans and underserved youth through initiatives like Urban Explorers Program. Will's insights into leadership and personal growth are captured in his books Post-Op Reflections and The Warrior Way, which have inspired countless individuals to overcome adversity and achieve their goals. Join us as we delve into the remarkable life of Will Spencer and uncover the secrets of a true warrior. It's an episode you won't want to miss. Will, it's an honor to have you on the show. Your career as a Navy SEAL and your work with the American Warrior Association are truly inspiring. For those that may not know or may not be familiar with your journey, can you give us a brief overview of your background and what drives your passion for helping the next generation?
Yeah, Nate, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm going to try to be quick. I'm kind of humble and just grateful to have the opportunity to serve my country, especially during a time of war and harm's way. But for me, the journey, always takes place when you're very young, as far as I can remember. And probably the most traumatic thing, or definitely fork in the road for me. And I tell everybody, especially when I talk to children or audiences, I tell them the hardest thing for me, even to this day, was when my father passed away. And that happened when I was 6. My father for me was my hero. Just like most parents are the heroes to their kids. My father served in World War II, like most of the greatest generation. He lied about his age, joined up when he was 17 years old, went off, fought in the Pacific. He was actually a part of the liberation of the Philippines when they reinvaded and took the islands back from the Japanese.
You got to be kidding me. All right, stop right there. Mm-hmm. My great-grandfather was a prisoner of war in the Philippine Islands, and he was actually liberated from Bilibid prison on Manila.
Wow.
So
yeah, I remember that. And then when they came over, after they took over the islands, they had a Bataan Death March.
Yep,
and
he's a survivor of that.
That's right. And that was tough.
It was
man for surviving that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but man, I mean, just that. What a small world. So please continue.
Yeah, no, my father was a part of the U.S. Army in the Pacific campaign that went across in Leyte and recovered the islands back for the U.S. during World War II. So he fought in the Pacific for 2 years, was in the Army for about 2.5 years. And after the war, they started discharging everybody. The interesting fun fact for everybody out there, and this is why they keep referring to that generation as the greatest generation ever, was that when my father was discharged, he went back to Wilshire, back to his old high school, and finished out his senior year in high school at the same high school. And for everybody out there, can you imagine that, going to high school, going off the war, fighting, getting after it, and in that type of manner, which World War II was a horrific fight, especially in the Pacific campaign, and then going back to high school and pretending nothing ever happened. Of course, he wasn't good enough looking to be like prom king or anything like that. And within 5 years, he actually had general rot in his teeth from just a small amount of time in the jungles of the Philippines. So that, and my grandfather served. So we have always had a history of service within the Spencer tribe. And two of my older brothers actually served too. I have three older brothers as well, but they all joined the army. So for me, I was a black sheep. I ended up joining the Navy, but someone's got to rebel. Someone's got to be the
That's
maverick,
right.
and you're right. And so I chose to take a slightly different path, but I wanted to serve my nation. But that traumatic event for me was when my father passed away, and it was in front of my
Mhm.
brother and I. We tried to give my father a CPR, but I was only 6 years old. My brother John was only 7 at the time. We used to watch a TV show called Emergency 5, and for all the older viewers out there, they might remember Emergency 5.
I
And the
remember it.
little that you remember that show? It was a
I
great
do.
show, but that was basically the BLS that I learned at the time, basic life saving, right? And I remember
Hmm.
my brother telling me to blow, and I probably didn't tilt his head back far enough, open up the airway. I probably wasn't getting enough air apparently into my father's own lungs, and he passed. He passed away. And then I realized at that moment that life is not fair.
Hmm.
Life is not easy. Life is a struggle, and you have to work your way out of every single obstacle or piece of adversity that is thrown your way. Um, growing up, became quickly impoverished. My mom had to work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on and a roof over our head. That's what happens when you don't have, the father in the home. You don't have
Yeah.
one, if not two, working parents. And so my brother, my 3 brothers, and I, 4 of us, we just spent most of our time in school, and that's what I tell all the kids out there when I speak to them. It's like the longer you can stay in the school, the better it is for you. You get to hang out, learn, play, socialize, stay in school. Every school district should have a
Yeah.
6 to 6 program, in my mind, and also good hot meals, which that's another subject we could talk about. Um, so in a way, it was good for me because if I was able to stay in school, I got 2 meals. I was fed breakfast, and then I got lunch, and then after school, if I stayed till 6 o'clock, they had snacks in the after school program. Because when weekends came along, we're kind of impoverished, and meals weren't as readily available during that time as my mom was
Hmm.
working her tail off to keep everything going. So I learned once again that you have to become independent, rely on yourself. There's no time for whining. There's no time for quitting. There's no shoulders to cry on, and you got to lean on yourself. And this is it. There's no other way but your way. And we had to get after it. And it's not a really great lesson learned, but I think a lot of kids and a lot of families, especially in the inner city, are learning that today. And they have these choices to make. Anyhow,
Hmm.
not to bore you with that, but 2 weeks after high school, I joined the Navy. And the reason why I did was I had a water polo coach. I played every sport imaginable. I played football, I did track and field, I wrestled, I swam, I played water polo. I did everything I could to stay active and get my energy out. And I was an angry young kid. A kid
Hmm.
that loses his father becomes very angry. But I was able
Yeah.
to focus that in a very physical way and also
I'll bet
intellectual way
those.
with studying.
Yeah, and I'll bet those coaches also probably, played a mentoring role for you as well.
Very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so. And it's true. The old adage of it takes a village. If you're blessed with good parents, man, that's awesome. If you're blessed with a couple good teachers, that's great. If you got awesome coaches and mentors in your life as well to help lead you along the path of life, you're truly blessed because life is hard to go it alone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, my father had a pretty rough upbringing, and I think it was his track coaches and wrestling coaches that really, probably saved his life and kept him from, getting in trouble because he lost his dad also, pretty young.
yeah,
Um,
and if you can harness, and I think it takes a very intuitive coach or mentor who sees that spark and turns it in the right direction with the right focus. You don't got to teach this young kid, this young athlete to be aggressive. He's already aggressive. You
mhm.
just got to focus it in the right and fair way, and they'll be great at sports. And that's basically what happened, probably to him and also for me.
Yeah, yeah. You
Um,
know, I'm just curious. When I think back, uh, years of my generation, and I was a latchkey kid. I had a single mom, who was working 2 jobs. My dad was still in my life, but he was a weekend father when I was young, and then that kind of changed when I got into high school. But it taught me to be self reliant, and taught me to I had to cook meals for myself and my younger brother often. We walked home from school. I dealt with bullies and getting beat up and having to deal with all that as well. And I just
Yeah.
think about like today's generation and the youth of today. I mean, do you think the future of the next generation of Americans has been stolen from them? And
Well,
what do you see
yeah.
as the biggest challenges that youth today are facing?
Well, you're 100% correct in what you said, Nate. The future of the current and the next generations of American children has been stolen from them, and it has been stolen in many ways. And they have a tougher time and more
Mhm.
variables to deal with than what we had. You know, um, First of all, and everybody out there has probably heard these different terms of indoctrination, grooming. It's basically brainwashing, and it's
Oh yeah,
happening 24/7.
yeah,
We just talked about the worth, the true worth of having great parents, teachers, coaches, and mentors in a young child's life to lead them in the right direction, to help them stay on the right path, right? But right
hmm,
now, what you're seeing with all the technology and
yeah,
all the platforms, um, you have children at the earliest and most vulnerable ages, when their brains aren't even fully um, mature enough to understand all these strange and wild and complex concepts, are taking in from this oblong box, this rectangle that they're holding in their hand because their parents want them to be safe and be able to communicate with them anytime they need to talk to them. They're being brainwashed depending on the platform that they're looking at. And some people will even tell you Disney's been doing it for many
yeah,
years, and that's a trusted organization. So just starting from there and talking about the complexity and the challenges this younger generation and future generations is going to have versus what we had is, I would say, it's absolutely much more difficult, much more
oh yeah,
harder. And they're dealing with a lot more challenges because they don't know up from down, right from wrong,
yeah.
black from white. Everything is okay. The moral compass is spinning.
Yeah. Oh, their
Um, it,
exposure to things that, that we never got exposed to, at that age is just unbelievable. And I'm even guilty of, giving my kids access to a cell phone, um, you know, way before they should have. Now, in retrospect, I see that now, but that was partly because things rapidly changed and especially social media and all that came about so quickly. I wasn't even prepared for, for even understanding or foreseeing, that type of situation. And it really is. There's so many things and challenges that they're having to face that we didn't. I was just thinking about it the other day when you think about like anybody that has spent any time like overseas. I lived in Japan. I lived in Korea, and it's like, we were completely kind of cut off from, all the stuff that was going on in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like in America,
yeah,
it's like we were in our own little, safe zone, if you will,
yeah,
not being affected by all the politics and everything, because none of that's on the, the military, channels, right? But then you look and see what people are facing today, and with social media and the access that even kids are worrying about things that you and I didn't even think twice about. I never thought about who we were going to war with or anything about, what
right.
was happening in the world. I didn't think about, shootings that were going on or terrorists and none of that, because that wasn't like in my face all the time, but it's in these kids' face all the time.
Yeah, and their minds haven't matured to the level where they can understand or grasp
Mhm.
these topics and they're severe or very serious topics. The issue with that, and I want to just maybe tie this into something I speak about at times, is that, and it doesn't matter if you're a believer or not believer, you believe in good or bad or evil or sin or whatever you call it, or just doing bad things, but everything that humans have in the history of mankind has created has been used for evil. Everything that has been created for good has been used for evil. And I bring up the story of um, the guy that created, and you'll hear about it today. They always have it once a year. The Nobel Peace Prize, and that's for Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel was an inventor who created dynamite. But the reason why Alfred
Right.
Nobel created dynamite was so that we could have safe mining. So you wouldn't have cave-ins and all these things that killed
Right.
miners and people that are working in that dangerous field. But then another humans go, wow, that's interesting how that blows up that way. I wonder if we can encapsulate that in these little cylinders and drop it on masses of people and
Mhm.
blow them up. And so from that point, from dynamite, nitroglycerin to today, we're dropping 2,000-pound bombs on urban cities and killing women and children or whatnot. But that initially was invented for good to save lives.
Right.
So why do I want to tie that in? Because this dynamic, despite the advancement of technology, has not changed in human nature. We
Right.
have cell phones now. We have laptops. We have all the technology, and it can be used for good. This is supposed to be the age of information.
Mhm.
Age of information at your fingertips. 70% of all information being passed to and fro the internet via phones and laptops is pornography.
Yeah.
People aren't looking up, the Britannica and Googling the
Right.
history of this, that, and want to know how this works or how electricity was created and da da da. They're looking up the wrong stuff. And so the people that are, you might say, are bad, or they're bad actors, or they're sinful, or maybe they're just straight evil, are using that technology to go right into our kids' bedrooms and at
Yeah.
the earliest and most vulnerable stages to get into their minds, to brainwash them, to exploit them, and to do bad things.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. You've dedicated a significant portion of your post-service life to mentoring underserved youth through the Urban Explorers program. What inspired you to start this initiative, and what impact has it had on the kids that have been involved in that?
Well, Nate, this is kind of a long story, but let me just try to tie a whole bunch of things in. I have 3 sons of my own, and I have a heart for children. Children, it's not their fault. They're just playing with the deck of cards that they're dealt with in life, just like I was. And they're trying to do the best they can with what they got. And some people win the lottery ticket in life when they have two good parents and a good community, a good neighborhood, go to a good school. Some kids, you're dealt a bad ticket, and you have to deal with living in maybe a crime-ridden city, drug infested, gang infested, one parent, maybe no parents at home, your grandma's taking care of you. And
Mm.
the chances and probability of you succeeding from that versus this other kid who's got a better lottery ticket or a better hand dealt to him, the truth is, it's just not fair. And so, raising my own 3 sons, I realized, and doing 14 deployments and being gone all the time, especially when the war kicked off, I focused on quality time because I did not have quantity time. Even when I was at home, the looming threat of me leaving again or pretty soon coming up again and again and again and over again was always on my mind, at the forefront of my family's mind. So I knew when I was with my kids, it had to be quality time. Whatever pearls of wisdom I dropped had to be good. My time with them had to be great. I couldn't become the disciplinarian. So every time dad came home, it's like, oh no, dad's coming back home. I had to
Right.
leave the war behind. I had to be in the present, had to focus on my kids. I had to share things that really were of worth. I remember one deployment. I was in Iraq and I was in Baghdad, and we're doing daily operations. Mostly we operate at night, but we do some daily operations. But one time we got flexed from one target site to another target site because it was supposed to be, or allegedly going to be, an IED factory. Well, when we flexed to this target, and of course, if you're told certain things, the ID factory, foreign fighters, they fought, they've killed Americans before, they might be wearing suicide vests, you're going to come in kind of heavy handed because we may not have the element of surprise because we just got flexed over, and they may spot us as we're coming in because we're already making noise nearby. And the last thing is that they've already fought and killed Americans before, so we're expecting a fight. So we're going to hit a little bit harder. And I remember this one target vividly because after we're going through the target, we're only a third way through. And I realized it's actually a school for special needs kids in Iraq.
Oh, wow.
So it was the wrong target. Whoever we get, and that's why I do have a negative connotation or feeling towards the agency. Talk to me about the CIA and the things they do or don't do or whatnot. They're not accountable for putting guys like this on a button. We're the ones that lay it all out there, and we have to surgically decide within a nanosecond: shoot,
Yeah.
don't shoot, right, wrong, all of that, and then we're actually ones held responsible. But they just gin up intel reports with no accountability all day long. Anyways, going through this target, when I realized, hey, we got to back out of here. This isn't what they said it was. I noticed some of the kids had cataracts in their eyes. You're talking, 7 to 9 year old kids, scared out of their mind. Some of them were blind because they had white, like, cataracts over their eyes. You can see it as we're shining our lights on them. And I'm talking 2 o'clock in the morning. So we shocked the crap out of them, and it really hurt my heart as a father. Then I
Yeah.
realized like these kids aren't just kids; it's even worse. They're actually like special needs kids. And then what I realized on their walls, they had torn out magazine pages from like American Teeny Bopper magazines. They had like Christina Aguilera, they had Britney
Right.
Spears. They were actually idolizing American culture. They love our music, they love freedom, they love that. And for everybody out there, let me tell you something. I'm an American, and I'm an American first, but we're all humans, and you can't decide where into what country and what family you're born to. But I could tell you at the earliest ages, these children, they done no wrong. They love everybody wants freedom, everybody wants liberty, everybody likes a good song when they hear it. Everybody wants peace. Nobody wants to be afraid. No one wants to be scared. No one wants to be subject to violence, especially children. This one operation itself, out of hundreds that I've been on, changed me to a degree where I realized, man, I'd like to do something maybe to make up, for the work I've done,
Mm.
because it sits on you. If you're a good man and you have a good heart, you have a good soul, war and conflict hurts because there's things that you're going to experience that most humans should never experience in their life.
Right.
And you're going to see innocent people suffer. And if you actually care, it hurts. And you got to suck it up, be a professional, and you got to rinse and repeat and go back out the next day. But I got to tell you, when you see something happens to women and children, who are the most vulnerable of us all, and you're a protector inside, you're made. I'm made and built to be a protector. It
Yeah.
shakes your soul. It shakes your foundation. And I would tell you, Americans, as the best and greatest caregivers of the entire world, we are the good guys. And when we experience these things like that, it shakes your soul and your foundation. For me, that op, I could tell you, shook me to a degree where I realized when I get a chance, I want to do some good. I want
I
to
think,
help the most vulnerable.
yeah, I think if I've been fortunate never to have to serve in combat, but I've known a lot of people who have. And I don't know very many people who have come back from combat situations where it did not change them, sometimes for the worst. And there's a lot of guys I know that, came back with a lot of, I think, mental scars, from the things that they've seen. I don't know what it is about, the special forces, Navy SEALs. Those guys seem to be a little better, able to handle. Maybe it's because you guys train, train, and train, and that is all that you eat, breathe, and sleep. But it seems like the resiliency factor, especially for the SEAL teams, seem to be pretty amazing. But I'm glad to hear, that something like that changed you, something like that made you stop and think. Because if we ever if we ever only have guys that just kind of harden their heart and don't see the reality of human life and what is happening in these circumstances, that's a dangerous place to be as a nation. And so I'm glad to hear that that you were changed by that experience. I've had my own um, demons that I've wrestled with. I think, and looking back at, I've spent 27 years of my career in cybersecurity, and I would say 19 of those years have been in service, either as a Army soldier or as a Navy or Marine civilian or defense contractor. And I've often, wanted and asked myself the question, is the cause that I'm serving a worthy cause? And I would say, the real change for me, or the real kind of like shocker for me, and this is one of the reasons why I think I've been, um, very much, and I think the whole country, I think, has kind of gone through some change. But I was like big time supporter of the Gulf War and Iraq and everything. But afterwards, in retrospect and looking back and seeing that we went in there on some false intelligence and things like that, it really it shook me. And to be honest with you, I wondered about whether or not I should even be working in the Defense Department and that sort of thing. But I think that we do the best that we can with what information that we have, and it's what we do with what we have. And it's in that moment where we know that something's wrong, whether we choose to do something about it or change it, or whether we choose to just turn a blind eye. And I did have my own experience in blowing the whistle on the FBI and it was a very difficult thing for me to do, but I had to expose something, that I knew was going to cost me my career, and bring a lot of, likely bring a lot of pain and suffering into my life, which it did. But I knew that at least now in retrospect, I can look back and know that I made the right decision. And when faced with information that was not good. So I can appreciate that comment a lot.
Well, I mean, we could do a whole 2 other episodes on just that, a little bit of what you just discussed. To
Yeah.
be honest with you, we could do a whole episode just on Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation New Dawn and all that entailed, and old curveball and the false intelligence that the German intelligence community with their source provided our agency, and then Colin Powell and
Yep.
Condoleezza Rice and everybody lying to the American people to get us into Iraq war and divert us from the global war on terror. And there's no trials, no one's being held accountable, and that's kind of where we're at right now, because guys like you and I who are on the ground, we're held to the highest level for the smallest thing, right? And our lives are on the line. And you're right, but I don't hold anybody that serves our country in uniform who is willing to step into harm's way at fault for the decisions of
Me
the
neither.
corrupt power brokers of our nation or that of the world. And tell me if you agree with this. And the reason why is because when you sign up to serve, you swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America. That
That's right.
Constitution to the United States of America is pure. I mean,
That's
that
right.
was like a check written for freedom and liberty, not just for that time, but for the future Americans to come. And that Constitution is what grants us all of our current rights, and of course the Bill of Rights too, that we're enjoying right now. That's being encroached upon and attacked every day from within, mind you. But that's maybe another episode.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then when you're on the
don't get me started on that one.
Yeah, that's episode number 4 that we're going to have together.
Yes,
But
yes.
when you sign up, you sign up to serve the Constitution. That's where the oath is.
That's right.
It's not to any name or any other human being, because the human beings are corrupt, sinful, or fallen by nature. And that's why we're in the times we are right now. And then once you're in, you realize I'm serving selfishly. This isn't selfish service. This is unselfish service. I'm
That's
selfless service, right? So you're doing it for the right reasons. You're in there for all the right reasons. Once you start realizing, like, wow, why are we even here? You start serving for the guy left to you and the guy to the right.
You're right about that.
You start serving for your brothers and your sisters, because I don't know what the Paul Bremers of the world are doing except creating an insurgency to kill more Americans. I don't know what Bush is getting out of this except throwing another pitch at a New York's game saying, freedom, America, America. We're fighting and dying over here, and we're wondering now why. Probably
that subject of when you're in the midst of combat, I've talked to a lot of guys that have, including guys that served in World War II and Vietnam, talk about the brotherhood, and how when you're in combat, you're fighting for the guy that's next to you, not necessarily for whatever politician's mission or whatever that they some leader at the Pentagon has decided. And it is that's one of the things I think, like with the military in particular. I think police forces are probably like this too. There is such a strong camaraderie and a brotherhood, because it's not like you in the heat of the moment, you really are, you're putting your life at risk for the guy next to you. And it's one of the things that concerns me, quite honestly. And in the second half of our conversation, and I want to get into that a little bit, about the morale of the military right now, where it stands, and about some of the problems that are going on in terms of, just the military cohesiveness. It just seems so out of whack.
Yeah, well, let's go back to us, the brotherhood and the sisterhood and the bonds that you create in adversity, where there's grave danger around you. I explain to people of faith, or not of faith, of why I'm a believer and why I have great faith now. That how God can love us unconditionally, despite ourselves, despite all of our mistakes, despite our shortcomings. And they're like, well, explain it. I go, well, I didn't really even understand that myself till I had my own three sons. And as soon as I saw each one of my sons come out, I instantly loved them unconditionally. I
Yeah.
wish I could tell you I had unconditional love for my wife, but truth be told, it's based upon conditions. You be good to me, I be good to you. You respect me, I respect you. You honor me, I honor you. Right? In sickness
Hmm.
and in health. Right, right. Nod, nod. With your kids, it's unconditional love. And you experience it, you feel it. No one needs to talk you into it. I don't need to do a 7-step study on how to unconditionally love
Right.
my kids. That's a little me. I got you. I feel it. It's instinctive, it's intuitive. The bond is there. That's the same relationship our creator has with us, his
Mm.
children. That's how I explain it to them. Where is the only other time they experience unconditional love in your life for the small moment of time on earth? And that's in combat, I hate to say, or
Yeah.
through trials and tribulation of adversity, without a doubt, without questioning, without having a conversation, without Nate and I discussing a 5-page, paragraph format in a foxhole. You sure you want to do this, brother? You could die or I could die. No, we're going to just do it. And we're going to fight for each other. We're going to get after it. And nobody's getting left behind. And that is the American way. And that's also the next and last time you experience unconditional love. It's on the battlefield and in the trenches.
Mm. Yep.
And
Definitely.
so going to what you're saying, that's it. And that's why we love doing it. But that's also what they leverage on us. Like, in the tribe, in the SEAL teams, we love our job. We love doing the work. We love doing that special work. And we love working with each other. It's a band of brothers, truly it is. But
Yeah.
they know that. They've done the studies and they leverage it incorrectly. Just like what I was mentioning with the CIA before. They know that if you say, hey, we got some terrorists here, they're only going to be there for the next 24 hours. They killed Americans before, and they're going to want to fight, and they may have suicide vests on them. You guys want to take this op? We're going to go, yeah, we want to take it, and we want to go as soon as possible. They
Yep.
know exactly we're nipping at the bit, and we're going to do it. And so, just like the U.S. military in the Iraq War, just fresh off of the 9/11 Twin Towers attack on our own soil, largest attack since Pearl Harbor, the fervor for revenge, the fervor for blood revenge was so thick and strong, and America was united. We're like, who's next?
Yep.
Who wants it? And the whole world was sitting back like, oh my gosh, like they woke up the sleeping giant again. And we were ready to get after it. And the
Hmm.
powers that be pushed us that way. And
Yep.
history will tell that tale.
So, speaking of fatherhood, you wrote a book called The Warrior Way: Advice of a Navy SEAL Father to His Children. Tell us a little bit about that book and what inspired you to write it. And then also you had the forward of it was written by Dr. Ben Carson. How did that come about? And how did you collaborate with him on that? And what does that mean for you?
So Dr. Ben Carson is a great man. And he's such a good man. And then probably the best thing I could say about Dr. Carson is that he's a godly man.
Hmm.
And he is what he truly is. There's no acting that's going on. He is just a good, godly man. And I honestly wish he was president or vice president. He would have been a good VP pick.
I know. I agree. I agree.
He would
In
have been a
fact,
great president too, to be
I
honest
know.
with
I
you.
agree too. I saw him in up in West Virginia University, and he gave a speech up there, and I had a chance to ask him a question, and it was just what strikes me about him is his humility. For as brilliant of a man as he is, and for all the things that he's accomplished, just how humble he is.
Yeah. And so I met him, when I was the director of the American Warrior Association, which is helping our military veterans and first responders as well as their families. Um, Ben Carson, fresh after serving off from the Trump administration, started the American Cornerstone Institute. And he,
Mhm.
just like the neurosurgeon, pediatric neurosurgeon himself, who separated, I think he separated the first conjoined twins ever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and created that by through experimentation and using hypothermia and stuff to slow down their heart rate to do the separate. Anyway, if you got to have him on and talk to him about that whole epic surgery by design that he created, so cerebral and smart, and how he figured that out. But he has a heart for children too, apparently. And
Hmm.
within the American Cornerstone Institute, he realized like it is about the family, and America is about the next generation. And if we don't do something for them, and we don't do something to support them and get them through these tough times and all these other threats that are coming at them, It doesn't matter what Nate and I do. It doesn't matter what President Trump does. It doesn't matter what all the good people who are working hard and their
Mhm.
moms and dads. If this younger generation is twisted in another way where they think socialism, communism,
Yeah.
all these lies, if they believe in all these lies through our form of democracy, the ego will fall.
I
And
can't tell
so,
you how many times I've actually thought those very thoughts that you're talking about right now. Everything that we're doing, everything we're fighting for, it's for nothing if we
that's right.
can't save the youth for the next generation. I mean, honestly, they are being bombarded and they're being propagandized every single day when they go to school, when they go to college. I mean, it is really it's a travesty what is happening to this generation. And
Yeah, I think, going what you're saying, Nate, this is all by design, the smart the smart folks on the other side, whatever you want to call it, our adversaries of America,
mhm,
have realized, like folks like you and me, we can't be moved.
yeah,
What I mean by that, I love God, and
yeah,
I give all my glory to God and Jesus, right? I love my country. I'm a patriot. Apparently, I will fight and lay my life down, but hopefully, I'll lay other people's lives down for my country. And I love
mhm,
my family, and I'll do whatever it takes to provide and protect them. And those are the two things a father brings for his family. He's the provider and the protector of his family. If you're not those two things for your own family as a man, you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing? And I need to get it
yeah,
right. Just the two P's: be a provider and a protector. So why did I bring that up? Because it doesn't matter if Will Spencer does 14 deployments. It doesn't matter if Will Spencer does 8 combat deployments. It doesn't matter if SEAL Team 126, everybody does all this great work on the war on terror. If the younger generation grows up and believes in the lies that they're being told from our adversaries, where I've been around the world 10 times, socialism doesn't work, communism doesn't work. Look at all the third and fifth world countries. Every time I come back to America, I'm like, this is the best form of government and the best society and country in the world. But if you allow these children in their vulnerable minds to believe that all this stuff actually is better, we're going to fall, and they're going to vote it in. They're going to vote it in thinking it's going to be a good thing, just like they've done
mhm.
many times over in all these other fallen countries. And
And
so we need to make our service matter by helping the kids be successful in the principles and values that our founding fathers laid down for us.
amen, brother. Hey, in your book, The Warrior Way, you offer advice to your children. What do you think are the most important lessons that young people today need to hear, especially in such a rapidly changing world?
Yeah, the first thing I would say to them is that don't believe the lies. Anything that is easy is a lie.
Mhm.
Anything that makes you feel good is a lie. Anything that gives you emotional fix is a lie. And that's how everything's coming at us in these very artificial. Kids need to be taught right now how to think, not what to think. And
Amen
that's
to
what
that.
schools should be focused on. Schools should be
Yeah,
focused on going, okay, we got a wonderful, beautiful child here. This is how you open up your mind and think
yeah.
and innovate and
Critical
create.
thinking, not critical theory.
That's right. And that's not what you're getting from a lot of teachers that so
Mhm.
happen to be liberal. They're telling them that they need to actually think like they do and believe in their ideals. If not, guess what? You get a C on your paper.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a Christian heterosexual kid from a good family. If you don't believe what I believe, you don't get that A or B, even though you deserve it. I'm going to give you a C minus. I'm going to hurt you. That's actually happening. I mean, I'm in California. That's
Mhm.
actually happening. Kids are coming home like, how should I write this paper? Well, don't go against your teacher, because if
Right.
you do, you're going to get hit. So they're being told what to think, not how to think. And that's not true education.
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted to circle back to Dr. Ben Carson really quick and the American War Association. So I helped him launch some of his programs to help kids with the American Cornerstone Institute, and that's in partnership with the American Warrior Association. And then in just kind of meeting each other and speaking for each other and being like minded and loving our country and God so much, we want to see the same good being done throughout the nation. So I have a lot of love and respect for Dr. Ben Carson. He's a great asset to this country. I hope everybody out there thinks so too. But read what he writes. I would listen to him, even though he speaks in a very quiet, humble voice.
Mhm.
Very profound message and very intelligent facts that he's putting out there for everybody to hear. So we started doing good in the American War Association. What I realized is, like, folks like me, first responders and people that have served our nation at home and abroad, they need to continue their service for purpose. and they need a mission. So those that are, maybe had troubling transitions or whatnot, if they're given an opportunity to give back, especially to children, the light goes back on to get right back in the ranks. They're giving back, and doing good things. And so from that, I created the Urban Explorers program, and I take American warriors and I make them the mentors of children who don't have fathers or don't have mothers or don't have both parents in the household, who are at risk or who are underprivileged. And we take them out in the mountains, teach them how to fish,
Awesome.
ride horseback, how to hike, do all the things that they don't do stuck within the 6 city blocks of their urban
Mm.
jungle that they're expected to just stay in. And then they expect them not just to stay in there, but even though you're on a path to prison, even though you're in a gang infested, crime ridden area, we want you to be successful. Good luck on you. Well, that's not how it works. So we're taking good people who should be good role models for them, who have the right things to say, and we're pairing them up, getting them out there. We do urban explorers programs in Idaho and Colorado, and that's why I wrote The Warrior's Way, the advice of a Navy SEAL father, because all the little pearls of wisdom that I told my kids over the years, like, work hard now, or you're going to work a lot harder later on in life. And it's a bit harder when you're older. The bones hurt a little bit more. The knees start aching. If you can
Mhm.
put it now, the workload up front, you're going to do a lot better. So I talk about discipline, consistency being the pattern of greatness in everybody's life. You want to be good at something, do it, and do it often. You want to create a great habit, do the same good habit for 21 days straight. You're going to make a good habit. You're going to instill it. You want to get rid of a bad habit, don't do that bad thing for 21 days and you're going to drop it. And so
Mhm.
it's all that good advice I told my sons during that quality time over the years, the little bit of window I had every time I came back from war, that I was able to give my sons, that I'm giving to these kids in this book, in with the Urban Explorers program. And it's also out there on Amazon for anybody or any organization to get to as well. Of course, the proceeds are going to the Urban Explorers program because more kids need that than ever before. But that's how it all came together, if I answered your question.
Oh yeah, definitely. Folks, we got to cut to a commercial break to give a word to our sponsors, and we will be right back. And on the second half of this time together, we're going to get into some really, I think, important information, and specifically talking about some of the things that are happening, in the world today, and and whether or not we're sleepwalking into World War III, and the role of the military today. So please stick with us. It's going to get, I think, even more interesting, and and I think we've got a lot of ground to still cover. So we'll be right back after a short break.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
Military use when they need unlimited power during critical missions. Civilians like you can now get their hands on the exact same technology within 24 hours for pennies on the dollar. Folks, as a former infantry soldier, I can tell you this is the best and cheapest way to get reliable, unlimited energy. And no, I'm not talking about regular generators or the expensive solar panels. You don't have to be an electrician to do it. There's no maintenance needed. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And the best part, you won't need to rely on the power grid anymore. Click below now and hit play.
Welcome back to the Raising Cane Show, and I'm here with my guest, Will Spencer. I'm your host, Nate Kane, and we've been talking about for the last first half of this show. We've been talking about his book and his background, and some of the things of where we hope, especially talking about the youth of America, and what we hope to see in them. But the second half, I want to focus in a little bit more on what's happening today in our military and geopolitically around the world. Will, you've got, of course, years of experience in combat tours and an understanding of the world, probably, from a very different perspective than I think most people do. I look, what's going on right now in the Middle East, particularly with Iran and in some of these hot zones. And I'm really curious to get your opinion on, what you see happening. I had mentioned before we went on to a break, are we sleepwalking into World War III? And given your extensive military experience, what are the signs that concern you most, and what should Americans be aware of?
Well, we're absolutely sleepwalking into World War III, and you hear the drums of war beating behind the scenes of everything, also slightly, as they're once again building this fervor to get involved into endless wars over and over again. And it goes all the way back to General Washington, our first president of the United States, that said, "Don't get entangled
Don't get
in
tangled.
foreign
Yep.
conflicts." And
Hmm.
here we are, and they get us in. But the military industrial complex and the corporations, there's so much money, and money is the root of all evil to be had with all these things. Look, I'm about peace. I've been fighting wars and conflict most of my adult life now, but I'm all about peace, and you got to have a big and strong stick to have peace. Um, but that doesn't mean you have to wield it all the time. That doesn't mean you have to use it. NATO didn't have to encroach up into the Russia border
Yep.
and try to bring Ukraine into NATO. NATO started off as 12 countries. It didn't have to grow into 30 something countries. And President Trump was right. Only 5 of the NATO countries actually pay their fair share of 2.5%, with written in
Mhm.
the articles of NATO of their GDP
O-
into their military.
On
He's right.
on that issue of NATO, I want to ask your opinion of something.
Sure.
We recently saw, I think it was about a week or 2 weeks ago, President Erdogan of Turkey made the statement that there's nothing stopping us, meaning Turkey, from invading Israel. And I've often wondered, how in the heck did Turkey become a part of NATO? Because I mean, I've done my reading on it and everything, but why they're still a part of NATO makes no sense to me. I mean, in the last several of the last conflicts, including the Syrian war, you had them really assisting and aiding Russia. You had during the Gulf War I and II, when the Kurds were assisting us, they were bombing the Kurds. I mean, it just seems like they've been hostile to a lot of our intentions in the Middle East, and certainly now with their saber rattling towards Israel. My concern is that we have a treaty with NATO. If Turkey were to invade Israel and Israel were to retaliate it, would that not draw us into a war on maybe the wrong side?
Well, I think that's where the issue it lies, right? But remember, like, where every marriage there could be a divorce. With every treaty, there's a broken treaty. I mean, look at every war that we've known since the written history, always, even World War I or World War II. Treaties were broken left and right until rounds are fired, right? As
Yep.
soon as talking stops, violence starts. So
Well,
yes,
and then
treaties can get broken.
and now you've got NATO providing basically U.S. military arms to directly to a non-NATO nation, the Ukraine, drawing us into another major conflict. You've got Russia, Ukraine, and NATO really pushing on that button. You've got Israel, which is now has Hezbollah, Hamas, Yemen, all attacking them, which are all proxies of Iran. And now Iran talking about that. I think the latest statement by the Ayatollah was that Israel will not see its 85th birthday. And then you've got in all the meanwhile that's going on, nobody's paying attention to what's going on with China and what they've been doing in the South China Sea, building up these islands, trying to basically block off, international trade routes and international waters, trying to make them, claim territory that doesn't exist. And you've got, I think we just gave a $500 billion package, military package to the Philippines because of what's going on with China. And of course, you've got the Taiwan Straits, and you have this current administration basically making it very clear, hey, if you invade Taiwan, we're not going to do anything about it, which I just see a lot of instability going on in the world, not to mention Russia placing their ships, their warships, down in Cuba. it's like all hell is breaking loose.
So I think what you're trying to say is that America has poor foreign policy.
Without a doubt. I mean, look, for all the talk about Trump, people saying, "Oh, Trump's going to get us into World War III." We had the most peace I think I've ever seen in my lifetime
That
during
is
his
true. That is
presidency.
true.
You know,
Uh, I
even
actually had
Kim
a
Jong
meeting with him
Un.
one time. No, and that's what blows my mind is like, the left, they're so crazy and radical. They are
Yeah,
truly in that whole, deny everything and make counter accusations. They project and gaslight everybody. So you got a guy like Trump, somehow he's Hitler and a Nazi. But truth be told, he's a guy that's trying to get us out of these wars and conflict and bring
that's right.
peace to the world. And the other side that's saying he's doing all that and gaslighting for it are the ones that are actually getting us into every single conflict and war in the world and creating instability and taking away whatever peace there was to be had. Um, Surprisingly
Even
enough,
even the Republicans that have, traditionally attacked Trump have been the most hawkish, pro-war, pro-expansion of the military-industrial complex. John McCain is one that I think of, and they hated Trump because he was one that actually
yeah,
spoke out against the whole Gulf War conflict, and our involvement in that. And he is the thing and I'm going to go back to Ben Carson, something that I heard him say about Trump, which to me was the best argument I have heard made, about Trump and about his way of doing things. Ben Carson couldn't be, more different in his delivery of, communication style than Trump. But
yeah,
when it comes to like where they stand on the issues, they're really, they are like two peas in the pod, and those are his words. And
yeah,
he made the comment at this speech that I heard him at. He said, and he's speaking, of course, in his background as a doctor. He said, imagine you got two doctors. One of them is got terrible bedside manner.
yeah,
He's not the guy that comes in and tells you everything you want to hear.
right,
Maybe he's got terrible bedside manner, but he's the best surgeon, in the hospital. Or you have a choice of having your surgery done by somebody who doesn't know what the heck they're doing, but they're really great with their bedside manner.
yeah,
Which would you want running your operation? And
right.
I think that is one of the best arguments I think that I've heard made, because for a lot of people they don't like his style or his brashness, because maybe they're not used to that New York Queens, confrontational style of approach to things. But I think he was right on the money with that.
No, but I mean, there's a lot to actually talk about from what you said previously, and also the character of Trump, and that lies the problem. Because I could tell you from being all around the world and dealing with so many different foreigners in different countries and whatnot, the one thing that foreign countries respect is strength, and they respect
Yeah.
Trump. They respect someone who says what they say and means what they say and will do what they say. Uh, we somehow in America got soft. And I always
Mm.
blamed the Pacific and Atlantic. Oh, actually, I blame our great real estate for where we are right now, besides some other key people. But we have great real estate. You have the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean to our east and west, and you have Canada and Mexico to our north and south.
Right.
We're not under threat of being invaded by any enemy. So
Well,
allows
I don't know about the southern border right now,
well,
maybe,
right. Oh, we could
but
get in. We
but
could
that's
get
a
in that
different
too.
kind of invasion.
Right, but I mean, like, there's not a
Yeah,
standing army that's,
you're
military
right. You're
bent on our
absolutely right.
border to invade us, right? So no one has to be tough. No one has to be sharp. So what's happened in America, we've been insulated and become soft without a really a threat right at our border or a knife at our throat per se. So most American, or not most, let's say half Americans right now, they want to hear nice things. And that's why you have an administration like the Biden administration, now potentially the Kamala administration coming in. They've failed at everything. Foreign policy, domestic policy, everything's on fire. Uh, Conflicts and wars everywhere, trade wars, the debt is out of control. The
Yeah.
southern border, what border? What border?
Yeah.
Because they catch them, they write down their phone, give them a cell phone, say, "Hey, log into this app, check in next year for your court date." What border?
Right.
We don't have. If you don't have a
In
border,
most
you don't have a
cases,
language.
in most cases, it's actually a check-in in 3 years. I
No,
mean, that's
three
the
years.
average wait time now. Yeah. It's insane.
So See, we got, crimes off the hook. People are dying from fentanyl left and right. It's just amazing. Like our domestic and foreign policy is in shambles just within 3.5 years from the Biden administration to Kamala. And somehow Kamala is surging in the polls and everybody's happy and like, yay, because she has a rapper out there rapping and she's telling them all these things. When I get in, I'm going to fix the immigration problem. She hasn't fixed
Right.
anything. She's made everything worse, but somehow people want to hear. It's kind of like going back to the Obama theme, hope you can believe in. Well, everybody believed in it and everything got worse. It's the same thing here. We'll just put a good message to music and a good beat and the people are going to buy it. Even though the receipts are on the table, the facts of the record is for everybody to see, but it doesn't matter because they want to just feel good. They want to sleepwalk all the way. They want to feel good all the way until they're off the fiscal cliff in the World War III, and they'll be like, "What happened? What happened?"
On that note, one of the things that just shocks me, and I don't. It seems almost like a military psyop in some ways. So when I look at the way that the media runs cover for Kamala Harris. And what I mean by that is like on the issue of the czar, the
Yeah,
media is lying to our faces. I mean, they literally, it's like telling you don't believe what your eyes or what your eyes have seen or what your ears have. I remember hearing the media talk about how Kamala Harris was being appointed as the border czar by Biden. And in fact, they were asking her, have you been down to the border? And she's like, well, we've been down to the border. We've been down. No, but have you been down? Well, I don't need to go down to the border to know what's going on there. This was an actual interview with her. And it's like they're completely lying to the American people. And I just, when you see that level of just outright lying, I have to believe that it's more like a psyop operation where they're trying to gaslight, people into believing something that's just not true.
well, it goes back to money, and money is the root of all evil. And so all these media outlets and legacy media, and that's why we're talking right here on your show where we could actually speak the truth. Um, they don't want to touch it because the receipts are there as far as how much money they're getting from the government to tote the poll and get the echo chamber of talking points out there, right? So they're all
Yeah,
blocking, they're all being fullback. So Kamala Harris, who ran for president 4 years ago, she came in last out of all the
that's right.
Democrats running for president, last place.
Yep.
She came and put together without a teleprompter. She came and put together five sentences together that make sense. That doesn't make you feel stupider for listening to her afterwards, right?
Right.
But now, she supported the Biden regime as a vice president because she was so intelligent. But we know why she was appointed as the vice president for two main reasons, right? She was a female and she was of color, and they
Yep.
wanted to bring in that vote,
I
and they
actually
did.
think that Biden had a moment of brilliance actually when he brought her in, because I think without her he probably would have been taken out. I think that nobody wanted to take out Biden for fear that she would be the president. That's my honest opinion on that. I think that
I
there
don't
was
think
some strategy there.
you might be right, but I would say Biden was the perfect puppet.
Without a
Because
doubt.
he was already a company man who was spearheading the globalist agenda. Didn't really care. He could flip flop. You look at his history and all of his speeches and all of his talking. He's flip flopped on every single issue that he ever stood on or tried to take a
Mhm.
knee on. Um, he's an actor without a stage, so he went into politics, and he's a bullshitter, is what it comes down to,
Oh,
and that
without a
people
doubt.
bought it. And then when it came down to him being corrupt as he was, and is because power absolutely corrupts people. He's been corrupted, and the fruit doesn't far too far from the tree. Just look at
Yep.
Hunter and his family, which they should be like their name should be mud from here on out. Um, he was the perfect puppet because he couldn't be held accountable for anything because he's just a nice forgetful old man, right?
Right.
So now from him, now you got Kamala. They're going to do everything the globalists want to do as far as undermining America. And guess what? If you say anything about it, you're a racist or a sexist. They want to have a reason to deny truth and tote the pole for her and run blocker for her because of the agenda, and she's willing to go along with it just because of the power. It doesn't matter if you ruin our country, the greatest nation that ever walked the face of the earth or existed. Doesn't matter if you ruin it. They're going to do it. They're going to tote the pole because they found the right people who will say what they want to say, do what they want to do whenever they want to do it. And that's what's
Yeah.
happening. It all comes back to money. And so right now, the media outlets like, do you want us to renew the $200 million contract that you had with us last year? Wink, wink. Then you better, here's the talking points, email sent out. They either say it or not. They either read the teleprompter, what the little producers write from, or they don't.
Yeah.
And if it's $200 million, stay in business or not, they're going to say exactly what they're being told to say. That's what's
Yeah.
happening.
Have you I'm sure you've seen the video where they take like clips of all of these local news stations all around the country, and they're all parroting exactly the same thing. You know, they've got the same message, the same like verbatim words. And it is just unbelievable to think that there's that much control over the mainstream media, but there is. I mean, they're all owned like by the same, 5 major corporations that, that own all the media. And
Well, it used to be, the saying used to be, I think it was Rockefeller said, if I own the currency, I own the country.
Mm.
But now in this time, they realize if I own the information, I own their
Yeah.
minds. And that's what's
Oh, yeah.
happening. It's a fight for the minds. And they're starting with kids at the earliest ages.
Yeah.
And once they got them, and they go back to screen time and all those stuff.
Well, this is one of the things that bothered me about like when the Twitter files came out and they revealed that the FBI, for example, had been paying, and the Department of Homeland Security had been paying to have influence to be able to suppress certain stories like the Hunter Biden laptop story. Oh, that's Russian disinformation. And all of that, you take on top of that the fact that I know that they were utilizing through third party, companies like Facebook, Twitter, Google, to spy on American citizens, to utilize, because they can't do it legally. Although there's plenty of evidence that they've used Section 702 of FISA illegally to spy on American citizens, especially those related to January 6th. There's been a ton of evidence that's come out in that regards, including evidence released by the courts and by federal judges. I think they had something like it was like 278,000 illegal uses of Section 702 to spy on American citizens. You've got companies like Bank of America that just gave up without a warrant, gave up credit card information to the FBI. It's like, it's bad enough that you got the media lying to you. It's bad enough that you've got the politicians, that are basically working against the country and pushing a communist agenda. But on top of it, you've got our own intelligence community. You mentioned the CIA. They kept the JFK killings information. They kept that silent for 50 years, even though you and I both know that top secret information isn't supposed to be classified for that long.
Oh, yeah.
And I brought after the attempted assassination on Trump, I brought on a guest that was that knew Lee Harvey Oswald. Actually, she was his lover, and she shared some information on the show that was pretty interesting. But one of the documents that we found that was the last document that NARA unredacted, because the documents had been declassified, but they kept it so heavily redacted you couldn't make any sense of it. But somebody sued, and in 2023, they had to redact or unredact these documents. And one of the documents, the very last one that they unredacted, it flat out called out. It was an FBI investigation into Lee Harvey Oswald, and it turns out he was a CIA asset.
Yeah,
which they confirmed at Tokyo Station.
Yeah, so was Osama bin Laden.
Yes, he was. Yep.
I mean, that's just truth, and it's out there, and people are like, huh, you're crazy. Well, no, I'm not. It's just facts. But look, we've all been deceived, and that's why, going back to our founding fathers, they all wanted smaller, limited government, because they know when the government gets big, it becomes a monster. The monster wants more control and more power, and it does whatever the monster wants to do. And that's why they also created the Second Amendment and things like that. And the First Amendment for freedom of press was so that we could keep controls and checks and balances on the government from growing into a monster, which turns into a Frankenstein and gets outside the box. And then just going back to origin of everything you just talked about, with all the rule and laws being broke by or used to be trusted institutions like the FBI, this goes all the way back to the Iraq War, and it goes all the way back to President Bush's administration. When that happened, he also used that to create the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is one of the greatest laws and threats to the freedom and liberty of the American people that's being used. It was created to protect us against foreign threats and terrorism. It's actually being used left and right to punish good, hardworking American people That didn't come from a liberal Democrat.
No,
That didn't
he
come.
didn't.
That came from President Bush and that administration, and he used the war on terror to hurt the American people and our freedom and liberty. That's just the truth. Don't believe Will Spencer or Nate Kane. Fact check that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think it was Harry Reid, who was the first person I think that quote, that, or at least he's the one that gets attributed with the quote that, never let a good crisis go to waste. And the Democrats, have become masters of that. But the Republicans are not innocent of that either. And of course, they utilized, 9/11, as a justification for war. And it goes all the way back to Vietnam. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin, that was used as a justification as well. And of course, that was a flat out lie. So
Yeah.
it's, you mentioned when I was asking you earlier, what are one of the things that you try to teach your kids? And that is, don't believe everything that you see, don't believe everything that you hear, but do your own research. If there was no greater lesson to teach this generation, I think that would be it, is that you cannot allow yourself, to fall into just believing or buying. And if it sounds too good to true, it probably is. And, I would go so far as to say that anything that is worth anything, it's not going to be easy to get there. And I see that what we've got going on in our country right now, the challenges that we have facing us, we have some hard times ahead, some very difficult decisions. And I'll be honest with you, if I didn't have faith in God, I would be a lot more depressed than I am right now. My only thing that keeps me sane is my faith that God's in control, and that sometimes nations have to go through difficult times to kind of bring them back on track and back into focus with Him. But I really see a major problem with all of this stuff that's happening in the world and where it's leading us. And I hope, I know Trump's going to win the election. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I know he won the 2020 election. I have no doubt about that either. I was involved in investigating a lot of election integrity, and there's a lot that's coming to light publicly that they can't hide anymore in regards to Georgia and Michigan and some of these other states. But like, they flat out destroyed evidence. And what I worry about is that even if Trump wins, and even if he wins so overwhelmingly that they can't deny it, there's going to be chaos that ensues. There's no doubt in my mind that the left is planning, to bring about as much chaos as they can. I hope that Trump will be the wiser because of what they did to him in the first administration, his first administration, where they kept him out of the Intel committee, or the intelligence community. They basically blocked him from access to the FBI. By starting fake investigations into him, and I think they really tried to hamstring him with that. Hopefully he goes in there and fires every single one of these bureaucrats that is in the intelligence community. He really has to clean house. That's one of the things that I hope that he does.
Well, like Nate, just going back, one thing I want to tell you is when I was a young 18-year-old guy going through buzz and I was in second phase, dive phase, I had one really hard, tough, not a man of many words instructor. And one thing he said that resonated with me, he was like, always ask why. Just ask why. Why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing this? Why can't we do this? Why is this? Why do we have to go this way? Why? Just question. If everybody would just ask why and look for a better way or better options, they wouldn't just get programmed into walking off the cliff altogether. Go back to, like you said, use your common sense and logic God gave you to do some critical thinking on every issue and never take anybody's word for it. Have that stranger danger type mentality. Even a young 1-year-old has, like, this is not right. This is foreign. There's something there. My spidey sense is tingling. And then going back to the whole Trump issue, everything's going to get worse before it ever gets better. They're going to undermine him left and right, like they did from every which way during like his first time in service in his first 4 years, if he gets in for another 4 years. Either way, we're going to go through some serious pains as an empire through the cycle of civilization that we're in right now. We have fallen because our moral compass is skewed, and we're on the decline right now. And before we hit the rebound, we're going to decline a bit further because it's the people that now have forgotten where we came from and what it took to get here. It's weak leadership that has got us a foot in the fire in every single conflict in the world, even when we can't afford it. Even when fiscally we're broke, we
Yep.
can't afford to give Ukraine another $100 billion. We can't afford to have a trade war, let alone get into a connect war with China. We're broke. The only thing we're standing on is that the world is broke too. But if
Yeah.
people move off the US dollar, it's going to go off. The shot's going to get fired one way or the other.
And it's
People
already
don't
happening.
understand. It's
Yeah.
already happening.
Yeah. The petrodollar, Saudi Arabia did not renew their agreement. People have no concept, of what that means. I think most Americans have no idea that there even is such a thing as a petrodollar, but it is a real problem. And now the problem is that you have a money supply issue where we've got way too much out there and no way to bring all that money back. And so their consistent printing of money to try to print their way out of debt is no longer an option. You brought up about us not being able to continue to fund, the Ukraine and all these other, like I said, we just gave, was it 500? I think it was $500 million to the Philippines. We've got aid packages that we're sending all around the world, and we're doing it with borrowed money. That's what people understand. We're borrowing that money from China to give it to these countries. Meanwhile, China's financing the other side of these very wars, right? That we're involved in proxying. It is just it's an absolutely asinine, crazy situation. On top of that,
But Nate, when everybody or a good amount of people in America are only worried about two things: what's in their belly and what's between their legs. If that's only two things people are worried about, yeah, we're going to go bankrupt as a nation. Yeah, we're going to get in World War III. Yes, all these bad things are going to happen, and everybody's going to be like, "What happened?"
yeah.
That's
Well,
what's happening right now.
when that happens, then, and I think we're already beginning to see it with inflation. What's in their belly is going to become, that hits very close to home. When people realize that they can not pay their bills, they can't afford to put food on their table, they can't afford to pay their rent anymore, they can't afford their utility bills because the dollar has become worthless. That's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of people. And I know I worry though. In addition to all of those things that we've talked about, you've got the Marine. I think the Marines are the only ones out of the services that basically met all the qualifications or the requirements for basically readiness. The Air Force actually had the worst readiness, mainly because they haven't built any new planes. They've got all these planes that aren't getting fixed, and so they're not getting the flight time. You also have the Navy was in bad shape. The Army was in bad shape. The Marine Corps, the only reason they were in good shape was because they only are under current law, they're only required to have readiness numbers that are for supporting a one-sided war, where all the other services required to have numbers that can, basically carry on a two-front war. So the Heritage Institute put out an interesting report on that last year that basically showed that we're in some serious trouble right now. And, and it's not there's no indication that the curve is getting better. On top of that, the morale in the military, I think, is pretty low, especially after what happened with COVID and the forced vaccinations that were going on. And turns out they were poisoning, a lot of our military members. In fact, I know a number of some of your brethren in the Navy SEALs that were kicked out because they refused, to take this experimental vaccine. And one of my good friends, actually, who's still who's a SEAL, or actually, sorry, he's Army Special Forces. He's got issues going on where, basically he's being retaliated against by his own command, for him refusing, to take this vaccine. How do we fix, let's say Trump gets in there. How do we fix the major morale problem right away? To me, that's one of the biggest issues, is that our military, whether Trump can divert or stop some of the potential wars that are coming, it may be too late for that. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But how do we fix the morale problem in the military? I mean, as somebody who served for as long as you did, what advice would you give to Trump on how to fix this as the commander in chief if he's elected?
Well, hopefully one day I'm in that position to give them some of that good advice. But there's so much to unpack of what you said, and almost everything what you said is very true and spot on. When it comes to the military and the whole government as a whole, it needs to be based upon merit. It needs to be a meritocracy, not based upon anything else that's biased and unfair in any way, which was what the military has turned into. The number
Mhm.
one reason why we have a military, and most people have forgotten this, is to win our nation's wars. Period. That's it. All of
Mhm.
our training, all of our building of a capacity and capability is for that effort, just like a football team. Every drill we do, every moment of practice, every minute that we're on the field in preparation is to win that game, is to win the ultimate game, which is our nation's wars. Doesn't mean to get into wars. It doesn't mean to get in endless wars. It means to win our wars. With that being said, we need our best performers. We need our best leaders. We need our best people in every position within the ranks. We don't have that today. Over time, and really it started in the Obama administration, he started appointing people, even currently our current Secretary of Defense General, who was a General Austin, who was in charge of CENTCOM when he was a 4-star. He
Yeah.
appointed people based upon political and racial preference and other things other than military leadership, natural leadership ability. As a matter of fact, if you were more like into a General MacArthur or a Patton or someone like a Sherman, you probably wouldn't get past lieutenant grade in today's military. You probably would have got headshotted with a professional headshot saying he's not ready yet. He needs more development. And that guy would have got out, worked on Wall Street, made millions of dollars, or started his own small cap company and did great things. But in the military, you're not wanted here. You're too good, and the men will follow you too much so that you're a threat to us. Let me give you everybody out there, because I try to explain what has happened to the U.S. military in a very simplified way for everybody to understand it. Have you ever seen that TV show Survivor,
Yeah.
where you get all these people on this island, right? And they're all going to
Mhm.
compete for this prize money. And they're all from all different walks of life, women, men, this persuasion, that race, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But they're all thrown on this island. Nice to meet you. Now we're going to survive. And everybody's going to get voted off the island until there's only one and you get the big money, right? Who do they always vote off the island first? They always vote the guy who wins the competitions, builds the fire, catches the food, builds a
Mm.
shelter.
Yeah.
He's the threat. So they vote him off first. Well, the same thing has happened in the military. It's happened in the SEAL teams, where I saw some of the best leaders who should have made it all the way up to commander, captain, maybe even made flag officer like an admiral. They're done by lieutenant commander because they didn't have the number one characteristic of performance that they're looking for, which is this, Nate. Nod in your head,
Yep.
north and south, in
They
agreement with
weren't yes
whoever
men.
has the most rank in the room. They just wanted yes men who were politically
Yeah.
correct careerists and went with the flow. Okay, so we went with the flow. All the good, honorable, hardworking warriors are like, this isn't the tribe. Like the tribe I came into when I was in 91, 1991, 92, they didn't care how tall you were, what race you were, could you do the job and could you do it well, and can we trust you? And that's why I love the SEAL teams, because it didn't matter what walk of life you came from, as
Mhm.
long as you could perform and were good at doing the job, which is a tough job, you're in. You're in the fraternity. That's what we want. It's about performance. Now it's about, are you going to go with the flow? Are you going to go along to get along? Everything else other than winning our nation's wars and
Yeah.
actually performing on the battlefield matters more than actual performance. So we got this person, they're out of shape, overweight, out of rags. This person's got a waiver for IQ that's less than a fifth grader. It's off the hook. How do we get it back? They're actually going to lead us into World War III. We're going to have a great reset. We're one Senate vote away from actually installing the draft because we're not meeting the numbers.
Yeah.
And they're
And they're
going to get
talking about
everybody else.
drafting our daughters, which is insane.
How is anybody voting for any congressperson or senator who's casting their vote to put people's daughters in the trenches, in the
Yeah.
infantry, into harm's way to die? I don't know how anybody can vote for that person. And honestly, we should now put out a law that anybody who runs for public office, themselves or their sons or daughters, have to serve in harm's way in the front line. I don't mean in the reserves. I don't mean the National Guard like Tim. I mean on the front line in the
Yeah.
trenches where a cheap Chinese Russian drone can fly over you and drop a 2-pound grenade on your little peanut and say goodbye. Or what? Don't serve. And then you won't lead us into these wars and endless wars when you have actual skin in the game. That's almost
right.
that needs to happen like yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at what's happening. I've got a son that's in the Army. In fact, he just re-enlisted, which I was kind of, to be honest with you, I was surprised. The only thing I can think is he's hopeful that Trump's going to be his new commander-in-chief soon. But he just re-enlisted. He just shipped off to Korea with his family. And, I think about it was bad enough when I was in, and some of the training that we had to go through, which was we thought was just BS, bogus training. Now they've got training and stuff for, how to be sensitive towards people's, gender pronouns and crap like that. And I'm just shaking my head going, seriously? All you got to do is take a look at look at Russia's commercials that they're doing for recruitment, and then look at America's commercials for recruitment. And I look at that, I go, we are so effed. It's like you've got this Army gal, talking about how she's got 2 mothers and how wonderful it was, and now that made her a strong woman and all this stuff. And then you've got the Russian military, and their commercials are all about warriors, basically, running through obstacle courses and stuff like. I mean, it's just one is definitely geared towards wars. The other one is like a social experiment gone wrong.
But this is why folks like us are worried, and I'll tell you why. Because good men and women that are protectors want peace. Weak people that are in the wrong positions, they're actually pro-war, but they're going to use technology to fight it. What we have and what everybody's seeing or witnessing right now, even though they're maybe not recognizing for what it is, we're in a crazy arms race right now.
Yeah.
And it's because our military is so weak. So we're going to have to use technology. Well, what does that mean for our competitors and adversaries? Everybody has drones now. Let me go back on the history of drones. The Scan Eagle was used as a platform, which is a small drone. It used to be a commercial drone, which is used as a platform to count fish, mainly salmon, going up the rivers and tributaries to do the fish count before fishing season. And then just like I told you before about the Nobel Peace Prize, someone's like, wow, that thing could fly on its own and fly for this long and that far and whatnot. What kind of payload can it carry? Oh, it could carry 5 or 10 pounds. And so that person was like, well, we could put this on that and that on that, and maybe a little missile, maybe a little bomb. And now today we have Reapers and Predators and MQ-1Xs and all that. Also, Russia has drones. Iran has drones. China has drones. There's actually, because of our weakness, we've created our ability to fight honorably on the ground with good men and women. There is an honorable way to fight. There is a dignified way to fight. Technology is now taking over, and we're in this arms race, which should scare everybody, because an unmanned drone that could fly autonomously, maybe with artificial intelligence, and carry a small nuclear warhead anywhere in the world, anytime it wants, and you can't do anything about it.
The Biden administration just lets them, fly the Chinese balloons over our airspace. And in fact, I did a little bit of research into that, and from that height, if a nuclear warhead had been attached to, had detonated that high up, it would have wiped out 1/3 of the entire electronics in our country. 1/3.
Yeah.
You gotta
wonder.
I know. It's like, what the
wonder
heck
why
is
they're
going on
allowing
with
that to happen. Yeah.
I want to share my screen real quick, because you're talking about drones, and I saw a news article that caught my attention just the other day, and I want to show this and get your comments on it. Give me a second here. Let's see here. I think I got to get the...
We're battling it out in the skies now, using drones to drop explosives on each other. And it's all happening just miles from the southern border near Arizona. It's happening in Mexico, but near Arizona. A top U.S. general recently told Congress he's concerned the cartel's drone activity could soon get out of hand.
General, do they, in your view, represent a homeland defense threat?
Senator, they alarm me.
from being the person responsible for Homeland Defense. I haven't seen any of them manifest in a threat to the level of national defense, but I see the potential only growing.
That same general said more than 1,000 of these drones are crossing into the United States airspace a month. Now, we don't know if any of them had explosives, but it's frightening to think that these cartels can operate these drones without any repercussions, at least.
So I want to just share something that I know about because of my, some of the contracts and stuff that I've worked on. I can tell you right now that it's like we don't need illegal aliens scaling the wall anymore. They're delivering drugs by drone, and nobody's doing a damn thing to stop them. And I mean, they've done everything from, try to, train hawks to take these things down. And so what do? They fit these things with titanium blades, so it hurts the hawks. They've got these guns that they can shoot nets at. They've got directed, systems that they've tried to use to basically knock out the communications. And they're using AI to get around that by basically setting it so it pre-programs it where to go and then to come back. And it's crazy. I saw a video, that showed them dropping drugs. Basically, a drone flew and hovered above a prison, and it dropped the drugs down. And the guy in the prison reached his arm out the window and caught the drugs out the window, and that's how they were getting drugs into the prisons. It's only a matter of time before we start seeing, these things being used in, in more military fashion against our country. And it is it's a fact that the cartels are working directly with China. China is communicating directly with them to supply them with the fentanyl and the precursors to fentanyl. This is looking more like, a weapon of mass destruction when you have over 100,000 Americans last year that were killed due to fentanyl. And you got China supplying the cartels directly with the precursor chemicals. I mean, war is at our back door. And if there was anything, like we've talked a lot about kind of some of the unjustified wars or the stuff that's going on in other countries that we're engaged with and, involved with. But if there was any place at all where it justified us actually engaging, it's at the southern border with the cartels who are killing us and killing innocent, civilians in this country. And I do say innocent because not everybody who is dying from fentanyl, is a junkie. A lot of these people, it's just some stupid teenage kid who thinks he's taking an ecstasy pill, but in fact, they've cut it with fentanyl, so he ends up dying the first time he ever tries a drug. The other thing that I've seen is that they were taking fentanyl and pressing them into tablets that were colored in various different, colors like pink and light blue and white, making them look identical to, to children's candy. And what is the whole point of that? Is it so that our kids get a hold of that and end up dying from it? And you've got them mixing, other chemicals in with fentanyl so that Narcan doesn't even work anymore. If there was any time ever where I saw, the need for U.S. to actually activate our military to defend our country, it's at our southern border. What say you?
Listen, Nate, someone asked me the other day, they said, Will, if you're president for one day, what would you do? And the one thing I said, the one thing I would do was I would direct everybody to enforce our nation's laws, period. Every agency, every organization, enforce our nation's laws and do what you're supposed to do. That's it. And interdict, stop, thwart, take down, and get after it. The problem is that now we've created, instead of for the people, by the people, other people, we have this small population, including the corporate class, that think they're the ruling class. And so all these things that you mentioned, where actually it's your good, hardworking, common people and their families that are being hurt by fentanyl, by drug addiction, by all these terrible things. And you're right, most of them are victims because they're chemically predisposed to that. And it's being put into them in the system in ways, and it gets into them, they're instantly hooked. So you're right. But it's not affecting the ruling class. So they don't care. They're not doing anything about it. They don't have a solution to fix homelessness because they ruined our economy and they made the cost of living too high for everybody. I could go on for hours and tell you what they did in California, how they stole the future, especially through housing by allowing foreigners to buy residential housing from our kids.
Yep.
Um,
Which
but
that doesn't
until
make any sense to me at all. Like you go to any country in the world and you cannot buy property. That's just the
right,
facts. You can't go to Japan and buy
that's right.
property. You can
You might be
lease
able
it.
to lease it for a certain
You
amount
can
of
lease
years.
it. If you go to Mexico, if you're not a Mexican citizen, you cannot buy property. You can, if you partner with somebody who's a Mexican citizen, then you can buy, property. I know because my uncle owns some. He has a business down there, and but he had to actually bring a Mexican citizen on as a 51% owner of the business in order to be able to buy the property. So it's insane that we allow other countries to buy up the one thing that we can't make more of, which is land in America.
Nate, you know what the worst thing about being stabbed in the back is looking behind you and seeing who's holding the knife.
Oh yeah,
And right now, it happens to be our own government, state and federal government. You
yeah,
know, in California mainly, you got businesses across the nation who decided, hey, we don't want to pay the proper wages to American workers. We don't want to pay for their health care and retirement, all these things that unions are for and fight for and protect them. So guess what? We're going to offshore these jobs over to China,
Yep.
a communist nation
yeah,
who is our now used to be just competitor, but now they're our adversary. And in World War III, they're going to be our
right.
total enemy. And they said, okay, we're going to pay you pennies on the dollar, and because they allow slave labor, so we're going to put
That's
our
right.
peasants to work for 14-hour days, 18-hour days for pennies on the dollar. We're going to enrich ourselves with American corporate money, and
Yeah,
then in turn take that money, increase their own military capability and capacity to kill American sons and daughters in the future. Oh, and by the way, we're also going to take that money and buy American land, including the residential property, prop up the prices through private
yeah.
equity groups and hedge funds, so make it unaffordable. So we turn Americans into what used to be our peasants into peasants in their own
Oh yeah,
homeland. Now they're renters forever, and they never own anything. That's
they're
what that's
turning us into serfs. That's exactly what they're
100%.
doing. Yep.
But like I said, everybody's as long as you got Uber Eats and Netflix on, you can sit on the couch in air conditioning. People aren't realizing what's happening.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just
this is why
happening, and they're like,
they're
oh,
pushing for, universal income, right? That's exactly what they want to give you just enough, to placate you. And and what was it that these wackos out in Davos were saying not too long ago? You will own nothing and be happy, right?
that's right. And universal income is just another, wordsmithing and social engineering for
Yeah.
a rich man's socialism with the poor trickle down economy as they allow artificial intelligence to take everybody's jobs,
Yeah.
which people aren't factoring in. So,
On that note, I was doing some research into this when I just ended a race for Congress, and I was in my primer. I was doing a lot of research onto the economy, and one of the things that shocked me was when I was looking at H-1B visas, and I was concerned because you've got the three largest importers of Chinese nationals, okay, which anybody and everybody should know that a Chinese national working in the United States by their own government's laws is required to spy for their country. This is why we have federal laws that state that nothing that is produced using any kind of foreign supply chain, and that includes software development or hardware development that is going to be used in national critical infrastructure, none of it can come from 5 countries, one of those being China, because they are considered a adversarial country. And it turns out that the largest importer via HB1 visas of Chinese nationals is Microsoft. Number 2 is Google. And number 3 is Oracle. And you know where Microsoft, Google, and Oracle abound the most? In our federal government.
yeah.
Their software and their hardware and their cloud-based services are all throughout our government. We are being set up. There's no doubt about it.
Hey, Nate, I might have to turn a switch on really quick.
No problem. Go for it.
Mike, 1 second.
Okay. We went over our time. That's why it said the timer went off. you're no. So this is folks. That's because Will, you're out in California. So is this a rolling blackouts they've been talking about? So it nothing is surprising me. I was just saying, was this due to the rolling blackouts?
No, we got to cut back on electricity in California. It's too expensive. But mind you, weekend in my office here, after hours, you have to turn this thing for 2 hours, or it shuts off on you.
Yeah.
So we're all about saving the climate out here. We don't expend energy for
save the climate, but let's spray a bunch of crap up into the airspace. That
Hey, look, our
toxins are-
hypocrisy in California knows no limits.
Yeah,
One day Newsom's allowing homelessness and crime and everything everywhere, and then when whispering in his ear, "Hey, after Kamala's run, you're next in line to be president." Now he's out there in jeans cleaning up the homeless problem and showing everybody, look, he's for decriminalization. All that,
Oh yeah,
it's all a hoax. It's all a lie.
I grew up in Southern California. I actually went to Glendora High School and lived in Pomona and San Gabriel Valley and all of that. Spent some time actually working down in your neck of the woods with the Navy, as I was mentioning before the show. So I'm very familiar. All my family lives out in California. I'm the only one that got the hell out of there. That was thank God, due to the military. I will say though, the one thing I miss about for all this talk about wanting to close our borders and everything, I will say the one thing I do miss about Southern California is the Mexican food. It is by far the best anywhere, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well, for everybody out there, look, America is all about immigration, but
Absolutely.
it's about legal immigration.
That's right.
And actually, one of the biggest demographics of patriots that fight in our country within the ranks in the Marine Corps and the Army are Mexican or Hispanic Americans or South American, Americans. I consider them all Americans. It's
That's
only
right.
the ruling class and the powers to be that are creating these divide and conquer wedge issues between us. Black and white, this and that, male, female, all the way down, even into our family, where they're just trying to divide and conquer us. The truth is, we're all Americans, and we're all trying to do the right thing and be united, and we want peace. It's actually our more underprivileged or more, I would say, less service communities that should be upset with illegal immigration. And this might be another episode to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Because when illegal immigrants are coming across and they're getting housing, they're getting free food, they're getting cell phones, and $3,000 a month exists. How about all of our multi-generation Americans who live in the urban environment in inner cities who are being treated like nothing,
Right.
giving no help, no support, no anything, and they're
Yeah.
taking care of these illegal aliens who've broken the law better than they are.
How about
They
our
should be-
veterans getting kicked
Oh.
out of hotels and in New York to make room for illegal aliens because they pay better, and so they were kicking out many of these veterans that were basically had mental health issues, and so they're homeless and they're putting them up in hotels, and they literally kicked them out of hotels to make room because of course the VA wasn't paying as much as Health and Human Services was.
Yeah, but generally veterans vote more conservative, so why should we take care of those folks so they don't vote off? So,
Right.
and here, just to circle back on something, I just want your folks out there to think about, and because this has happened many times in the cycles of civilizations, first, you're kind of distracted. It's what I call the D's of death. First, we're all kind of being distracted in many ways. We're overly entertained. We're overly indulged. There's a little bit of selfishness when it comes to materialism and consumerism and all those things, isms that aren't necessarily so good for us. So we're all distracted, right? And now while we're distracted, the population or the voting base is being diluted ever so slowly. Why do you think we have representatives within Congress who hold more allegiance to Somalia or other countries than they do America? Right? Because their voting base was diluted so much so that if you actually went to their voting districts, it doesn't even look like America like it used to 20 years ago. it might as well be a third world country. It has changed. The demographic
Yeah.
has changed. So literally, we're being diluted by very targeted immigration strategies within our own federal government, selling out our local communities and votes.
Well, and
So
it
while we're
doesn't help. It doesn't help too that they count illegal aliens, in the census, which affects apportionment, which means that you've got overrepresentation in areas where there is, large illegal immigration, like California. They were saying that if they didn't count illegal aliens in the census, that California would lose 7 representatives.
That's right. So there's a reason behind the madness, right? There's a reason why they're doing this. They want the numbers so they get the representatives because they get the votes. They have the higher population. That's why you got guys like Mr. Governor Tim Walz over there in Minnesota who gave illegal immigrants driver's license. Let's just, even though they broke our law, they're sucking off the taxpayers' teeth. Let's go ahead and award them with more support, more resources. And by the way, let them drive amongst our citizens and they don't even need to carry car insurance. So we have sellouts. We have traitors with their own country in political office today who are saying all these nice things, making people feel good about themselves and the life that they're living while they're slowly distracting them while they're leading them off the cliff, which leads to my last thing, which is death, the death of civilization. We're so distracted and being so diluted that we're slowly being destroyed all the way into our death, but we don't know it because we're being told all these nice things. We're being lied to so well. The media and everybody else is just kind of, going along with it. So no one knows, but it's happening. It's literally happening. And that's what we have today.
Yep. Yeah. Wow, man. So much to cover. We're definitely going to have to do some other shows because there's some things that we didn't have a chance to get into that I really do think that would be, worthwhile to get into. But I don't want to go, we could probably talk for at least 3 hours or more.
Yeah, we gotta get some focused subjects to talk about. But the last thing I like to say to your folks out there, hey, listen, if you have a heart to serve and you have a heart to serve others, I say go for it and get after it. You can do no wrong by serving your nation, the country that you love for the right reasons. And America is a great country. Serve your country, serve your family. And I'll tell you this. I have always been grateful and appreciate the opportunity to serve. And I served everybody, every color, every race, every religion, every American. We didn't divide. We didn't try to separate each other. We didn't try to, create distractions and wedge issues. We're all in it together. And so if you have a chance to serve, but serve for the right reasons, and you'll have the love and esprit de corps that I've come to know and experience. And I don't regret it. Even though we have a failed government, we have people in the wrong positions doing bad things for America. If you serve for the right reasons and you serve honorably, you'll never regret it, and you'll be grateful that you did.
That's one of the things I loved about the Army was they broke us down, in basic and basically kind of strip away from, us all those things that separate you. At least that's what they're supposed to be doing. And I remember they telling us, you're not this, you're not that, you're all Army green. I was in the Army at the time. So, but that was a really cool, idea, really great principle. And it was something that I respected. In fact, I saw, a lot of really good things coming out of that. It was scary though. I'll tell you this, a funny story though. The first time I got off, I'd never been to the South ever. I grew up in Southern California. So I get off, my basic training was at Fort Jackson, I get off the bus and,
Is that Mississippi?
South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina. Okay.
Yeah. So, Fayetteville. And so I get off the bus and I'll never forget because the sergeant, he's like, all right, you maggots, get off here. I want all the black guys over here in this line. I want all the Hispanics over in this line. I want all the Asians in this line, all you white guys over here. And I'm thinking, oh no, they're segregating us. And there was forced integration. They were like, all right, you're going to be battle buddies. And they were basically putting us in these teams, to force integrate us. And it was but it was funny because the only thing I'd ever seen about the South was that movie Mississippi Burning.
Yeah.
So that was my only experience. And it was quite a scary experience at first, but and the military is not perfect, man. I saw racism there too, but I saw a lot more camaraderie and, people working together and people looking past, things like race and religion and
Yeah.
it was just it was an all and out, like I said, brotherhood. And it was something that I thought, was a really great thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of subjects tonight, and I want to kind of bring it back to kind of where we started and what we talked about, at the very get go. Which was talking about our youth. And Will, what's next for you? What projects or new projects or initiatives are you working on that you'd like to share with your audience or with our audience? And if there was one. And the other thing too, also, I want to make sure, tell people where they can, follow you, where they can find you. Are you on social media? Do you have a website? Where can people find out more information about you? How can they support the organizations that you're with?
Okay. Well, I still run my own small business, Ragnar Development Group, which is training, security, and consulting, and so that's what I do to keep the lights on myself. The American Warrior Association at www.awa-usa.org or American Warrior Association.org. Hey, look at the site if you want to contribute to a great cause that's helping our military veterans, first responders, and their families. I say look into that. If you know anybody that served our country at home and abroad, to also include our nurses, our ER docs, our paramedics, our EMTs that are transitioning or need some help. We have free programs from some great supporters who donate to the cause that we hold up in our ranches and retreats up in the mountains, where we put God first, and all we do is teach love, grace, and forgiveness. And Lord knows we all need love, grace, and forgiveness. We're imperfect by nature. We're all deeply flawed, but we're all like, and we're all the same. We're all here for each other. So go to the American Warrior Association if you know someone or you yourself need a retreat to refresh your batteries, do some decompression, and get back to good in life, in your marriage and relationships, or just back on track. If you want to volunteer for the Urban Explorers program, check that website out as well, because we have the Urban Explorers program in there. And I'll keep doing that and expand that program and try to help as many kids out there who are mostly fatherless or trying to navigate through troubling times in the modern day life that we're living. Today, I was at a Nike football camp, spoke to about 100 kids, handed out my books to all the kids, gave an emotional speech about how and why hard work matters, and hard work will always pay off, and always use discipline, consistency, and love yourself first too. You should be your number one advocate and want the best for yourself above anything else. And if you do that and respect yourself and respect others and put the work in, you're going to get to where you want to go. And that's the purpose in life. I'm going to keep doing that. If you want to get my book, the Warrior Way, Advice of a Navy SEAL Father to His Children, it's on Amazon. It's a good read for you, for any kid, a school age kid. It's a great stocking stuffer. And if you're an organization that wants to use it, as far as like church groups or anything like that, feel free to use it. We have curriculum that we use in coordination with the book in our Urban Explorers program. But I'll tell you what, our kids, they need more love and support than ever before. The threat on them for their mind, body, and soul is greater than ever before. Like, whether you're a religious person or not, you're a Christian or you're not, the temptation, the pull, the war for our children is on, and the attack is very real, and it's happening within everybody's household, even when they're going to sleep at night. And it may be digital, it may be unknown to you, but it's absolutely happening, and you have to be aware of it. So by instilling the true principles and values that our Creator wants us to have, that are right and true with a solid moral compass, I would say that, get the warrior way. It's just helpful. And if they won't listen to your parents, maybe they'll listen to a guy like me who's been there, done that, and seen a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just wants the best for everybody's kid as far as Americans go. That's probably a lot being said already, but you can also, reach out to me. I'm kind of a quiet, low key kind of a guy, but I do have an Instagram. It's Big Will Spencer on Instagram, and it's Will the Seal on Twitter. But I try not to tweet too much because I don't want to be attacked by the left, who will degrade me and say mean things to hurt me and disparage me, because that's what they do. But when you challenge them to a fist fight, they don't. So whatever. Anyways, but that's where I'm at. Mutual combat. Hey, the last thing I'll give you too, Nate.
Yeah.
Back in the day, dueling was legal. If you had words with someone or disrespected someone within Congress, within whatever, we could go outside and go, muskets or swords. Which is it? Which one you want? And I would just put to everybody out there, maybe our talent and gene pool within our political leadership or ruling class would be better if dueling was reauthorized so we could get rid of some of the whack jobs who are out there ruining our country from within. But I don't know. It's outlawed now, so we can't do it.
So I'm assuming that you would be all for a cage match between what's his name, the Venezuelan leader, and oh gosh, I just saw this. It was on the news. It was you had
talk about the boxer.
No, Elon Musk was challenged to a cage match by Maduro. Did you hear about that?
Right?
Yeah,
right?
and of course Elon Musk said, "I accept," but of course I'm sure that's not going to happen. But wouldn't that be nice?
Zuckerberg wasn't he supposed to fight?
Yes,
Zuckerberg or something like that as well.
That would have been great.
Look, I'm always down for a good fight. To be honest with you, at a certain age, maybe 50 is the cutoff, though. You don't throw you don't throw fists anymore.
It starts getting embarrassing. Yeah.
Or you choose a different form.
That's right. Shuffleboard.
Something.
All right. Well, hey, this has been a great conversation, and like I said, I definitely want to have you back, and we'll plan to do some other shows. I think what you're doing is great, and I commend you on it. And folks, what Will was talking about, getting involved. I can tell you, I was very comfortable in my life. After I blew the whistle, the last thing I wanted was to be out in the public again. I wanted to just get my life back, my privacy back, and live my quiet life, out here in West Virginia, next to next to the river, get out on my boat and enjoy life. But I felt the Lord calling me to run for office. And so I did. And while I didn't win, what I gained an appreciation for service. And as I got out there and talked to people and found out about the real issues that people are facing, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I'm doing other shows and talk radio and some other things, because I realize that there's still something that we can do. And I'm getting involved locally as well. There's a group that we're starting here out in West Virginia, Eastern Panhandle. I'm starting a chapter of MOVCAC, which is Motivate, Organize, Volunteer, Citizens Action Coalition. And we're dealing with all kinds of different issues, but, our local state legislature, and focusing on those issues that matter to the citizens, and making sure that their voices are being, propelled, not because some paid lobbyist is down there in Charleston, but because the people care about these issues, and we're making sure and reaching out to our state legislature. But we're also getting involved in teaching people, how to prepare for hard times ahead. And so we're bringing in some great guest speakers to talk about everything from, canning to gardening to, first aid and self-defense, all kinds of interesting, topics. And so, find whatever it is, that niche that you have, and get engaged. For me, Lord's blessed me to know a lot of different people with a lot of different gifts. And so he's kind of helped me to bring different people together for these types of things, whether it's on the radio or on Rumble or wherever, or if it's in person. And I really do recommend that people get involved locally, especially because that's where you're going to build those relationships. And when the hard times do hit, you want to have good relationships with your neighbors. You don't want to be an outcast. You don't want to be, a lone ranger. You're going to need your neighbors. And but I always like to give the last word to my guests. So Will, if there's one thing that people take away from this, show tonight, what would be the one thing that is the most important thing that you want people to take away from it?
All Americans want peace. We'll fight for it. Just like Reagan said, we'll fight for peace. We'll negotiate for peace. We'll do whatever we can to have that peace. But the one thing we'll never do is surrender for it. And so for all you good Americans and patriots out there, and all our founding fathers and those that came before us, we fought for a reason. We fought so that we and our kids could have what we enjoy today. But freedom can be lost, and it's only one generation from being lost away. So we got to do what's right for each other. We got to come together. What Benjamin Franklin said, we either all hang together or they're going to hang us separately. So I'm in the fight with you guys. I'll pray for you guys. I'll pray for America, pray for President Trump, pray for every single honorable leader in America who's doing right for our country, and stick together. Now's the time, and these were the times that you were created for. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I always like to give the I recognize, and I know you feel the same way, that we have to do our part as Americans, but obviously we cannot succeed without God's help. As the scriptures say, unless the Lord builds a house, those that labor in vain. Unless the Lord guards the city, those who stand guard over the city are doing it in vain. So I always like to reach out to God and ask for his assistance in all of this, and ask for his providence. It's something that obviously our founders understood. And I think in many ways our country's lost its way by not acknowledging that. So if you will, I'm going to end this in prayer, and then we'll close out the show. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you so much, God, for blessing us with this great nation and the opportunity that it has given us to steer the direction of our nation and where we go. Lord, we acknowledge we need your help. Lord, we ask for your guidance and your direction. We pray, Lord, for our leaders, even those that we don't necessarily care for, Lord. We pray and ask that you would give them wisdom, and if they don't choose to use wisdom, Lord, that you would remove them from those positions of power and replace them with those who will honor you. Lord, we pray that you would bless our nation, bless our military, restore the morale in our military, Lord, and help get our country back up to snuff and being able to protect its own self and its borders. Lord, I pray for Will and ministries he's involved with and the organizations that he's involved with. Your blessing over him. Thank you for him coming on the show. Thank you for him and his family and his boys for giving their dad for a couple hours to come on the show and be able to share thoughts, Lord, and pray your blessing to them. Lord, thank you for everything that you've done for us and for laying down your life for us, Lord, your son. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Raise some. Hey, hey, hey. You gotta raise some cane. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some cane, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change. Time is now. We gotta raise some cane.